Okay, great. Welcome, Travis and everyone else who's here. Michelle and Daniel, and of course, Bruce. And I'm Jeanne Jackson, and this is Roger Jackson. No relation. But welcome to the little presentation we have for you. Roger is a fellow as well, and I asked him to join me in the presentation. And so let's keep it really casual, and if you have a question, then just speak up. We're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to talk about the college and what the submission looks like and how the jury works. There's some myths, important dates, which we'll talk about a little bit further, and then a few statistics. So about the college, you know, I didn't know this, but every architect doesn't know what the College of Fellows is, right? So I had a friend who was elevated, and he told one of our old classmates, and his classmate said, "What does that even mean?" So you guys probably all know since you're here, or
I didn't know about it in college. I found out. I used to work for Jeanne Jackson.
Yeah,
so that was kind of my introduction.
I wrote June on it.
Access.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so what's interesting is the college was founded in 1952. People don't realize unless you read this. Have you read it?
No.
Yeah.
So
So can you hold that up, Roger? This is a thing you get when you become elevated to fellowship.
it's actually really interesting. It's a list by year with some sort of photo or something. Let's see. So this was 1959. And I went through that on my copy from 2015 and put a tag on every name I've ever heard of. And underlined and marked all the fellows from Utah. Because I'm a fellow. I'm also the Utah Fellows kind of
Coordinate. We are still, even though AIA abandoned regions, we in the college are still in regions, simply because there aren't that many of us. And in fact, the Western Mountain region, as we've changed into College of Fellows regional regions, we've added Montana and Idaho. They wanted to join our region. So
it's Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. So there's 8 states.
It's a swap through
this big hunk through the middle of the West.
Exactly.
And we have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
Colorado has a ton of members. Arizona has a ton of fellows. Arizona has a bunch. Montana has 2. Idaho has 2. We have 23.
Wyoming has 4.
Wyoming has just a couple, yeah. So
it's not a big.
We have a big open space. We have air issues to talk about. We have water issues to talk about. We have land issues, things that are familiar to all of us in this part of the world. And most of our states liaison to that. Right.
So one interesting thing about the college is that, as you see, it was founded in 1952, but this book goes back before that, right? If you look at the first.
Yeah, the very first group was
1952.
1857.
1857 is when they. So what happened is there weren't many architects in America, right? And so when they got together and started the American Institute of Architects, everyone was a fellow. That's what they called each other. Because it was an idea of creating fellowship. But then they realized that maybe that should be a different thing. So all the people from 1880 or whatever, they're not actually special. They were just all the architects who joined together. Once you get to 1952, it becomes a juried process. Only the gold medal is a higher honor than fellowship in the AIA. Here's a nice little picture of one of the investitures. So the college has a 4-member executive committee. It has a chancellor, vice chancellor, a bursar, and a secretary. I happen to be the bursar, this treasurer. So in a couple of years, I'll be the chancellor of the college of fellows. I think it's going to be fun to I think I'll be like the 8th woman or the 9th woman or something like that. So no first there, but I've become very involved in the college. So what are the missions of the college? You should know this before you think you want to be a fellow, right? A big one is the research and scholarly work. So when you become a fellow, you get asked for money. And this is one of the things that the money is used for. The main thing, really, it's the biggest architectural research grant that there is. And we're actually talking about increasing the amount because as time goes by, you know, inflation. So the first person or the first firm to get this was actually Kieran Timberlake. And I think it was about 10 or 12 years ago. So that the Latrobe was only started for that long. Another mission of the college is to mentor young architects and emerging professionals. So we always say we have a special relationship with the YAF. Here in Utah, it is not as pronounced because we haven't had Roger whipping everybody into shape too long.
We're getting better though.
Yes. But you know, nationally, like last year I was the liaison to the YAF nationally. And so we help them, they help us, we share. We have a publication called The Quarterly, which you might imagine comes out quarterly. And they have a publication, and so we always share articles with them, publish some of theirs. They're lovely. The leaders of the YAF are lovely. Sustain the college, that's the third mission, through fellow advancement, which is one of the reasons we're here today, and building the college of fellows for those reasons. One of the other things the college does with the money, one of our chancellors once said, what we do is we give away money. So we give things called AI component grants, and I'm happy to tell you that this year AI Utah received a component grant. And it's for mentoring. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing you should know is only 2% of members of the American Institute of Architects are fellows. It's pretty exclusive. We have about 3,100 right now, 3,200 maybe. So one of the reasons Roger's here is to talk about a submission. So I'm going to let you take this part.
So it's a lot of work. Can't sugarcoat it. It's a lot of work. And you have to explain who you are and why you deserve this. And the thing that was the most impactful for me to think about was, so what? With what you've done, what is the ripple effect? That's the word that's used. What is the impact? That's the word that was used more when I did that. What is the impact? What you've done? Did work on projects, whatever you did.
It's not enough to just be a good architect.
Yeah, it's not enough to just be pretty good at what you do. It's just, what is the impact? Is it that, you know, you helped other people? Some research things, some new things, something that has helped and enriched the lives of other people in one way. And that was kind of a hard thing because
it's your story. What is your story?
Yeah, it's your story. And so what? Your story. What is the impact of it? Which I thought that was the hardest thing for me to say, what was the impact of it?
You went 47.
Well,
40 pages.
Yeah, but the first one I can do it in 35.
Yeah.
And it's because they ask specifically for a 35-word thing.
They call it the zinger.
Zinger, yeah, 35-word thing that says.
I'm pretty sure nobody does it in less than 35.
I did mine was like exactly 35. And you wordsmith it to death. And then that's part of a one-page summary of your career. And you got to hit the good points and talk about your impact all on this one page.
The first page.
The first page. And then everything else behind that is back. Significant projects.
We have slides.
You have slides about everything. And one thing you do is you get a sponsor who knows you and can speak to you. And so the sponsor letter is very important.
We'll get to it.
Okay, we'll get to that. In fellowship, there are 6 objects.
Right. That's the topic he picked.
Yeah, that's sort of the category.
So there they are.
When I did it, the instruction to me was, I did it in 12, 13, and 14. I was rejected twice.
But he bravely carried on.
But I bravely carried on. But for design,
Which object were you in?
I did 2.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's
because design at that moment seemed to think you had to have been published in national magazines. That's the way it was explained to me. And I got nothing. So, and so I went under object 2, which is about practice. So practice is firm management. I went under seems like a different sort of category under object 2 about a specific client group, taking care of a specific client. Most of my work in my career was with the LDS Church. So historic buildings, temples, and temples shut into historic buildings. And that was that's it. That's what that's been. And so I had to craft that story into object 2 as a practice.
Yeah, I also went under object 2, although I have a totally different story from Roger, because I've designed schools my whole career. And I have had a lot of them published on national things. And that was, and I have a multifaceted story because of the service I've done throughout my career. So I was in the Committee on Architecture for Education. I ended up chairing that committee, the national one. I also was involved heavily with NCAR when I worked on the licensing board here, which I chaired. And then I also had worked with, actually I don't think I had too much with NAB. I've done visits with the National Architectural Accreditation, which I later served on the board, but I think it was past that. Anyway, I had all these different things. So it was hard. If you have this kind of thing, you may find it hard to pick your story. And I changed my object while I was crafting it to object 2, because I thought it would fit there. I think it was, I can't remember. It was, obviously I found the right fit, but
And nowhere does this say what I did.
that is so funny.
It doesn't say object 2.
Well, and
This
then,
is a copy of mine.
object 3 led the institute or a related organization. I mean, it could be in the building industry or whatever, but that's where I started, because I had led some things. Yeah. Yeah. The thing that some people have not figured out is that it isn't enough to say I was president of AIA Utah. It isn't enough to say you have to say, well, I was president of AIA Utah. Here's what I accomplished that bettered our profession, right? That impacted our profession. It's not a lifetime achievement. It's a recognition of your hard work. Object 4. So I sponsored a couple of my clients actually, who have been in the school facilities management for many years, and they both deserved it. It was like when you have 2 partners in a firm, it's sometimes people think they have to go separately because they both worked on the same thing. They were like that, but they were both equally responsible for the significant achievements that they got. So they went different years. And then object 5 is a very hard one because you do have to have quite a number of your reference letters from a member of the AIA. And for example, my partner, Neil's volunteer, has done a great deal of humanitarian work in his life. And I think he deserves it for that, but he couldn't think of any other architects if he could, that knew him and knew his work well enough. They can say something about it throughout the country, right? So he ended up not trying. And then object 6 is a pretty new one. It's for the people who, are the academicians often. Any questions about those? We have. And Brenda share, yeah. Are any questions about these?
This is part of figuring out your story and plugging it into the categories that give that. Because it was kind of tricky.
When I did mine, I sat down and made a list of all these things that I felt were important in giving an impact. And that's how I started. And then I crafted that summary sheet out of that, which I rewrote about, 47 times. But if you get that right, the rest of it falls in place a little easier.
For me, my sponsor was Mike Stransky. I've known him for a long time. We worked together on the project. He just spread up and said, no, do this. Did he do this?
So in design,
One question on the objects that aren't design related.
Yeah.
How do you, or should you include your work as a practitioner?
Yes.
And how do you do that?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
There's a place of exhibits that you would do.
And I believe.
And I guess I wonder, if I'm going into object 3, which is what I'm thinking of, institute.
That makes sense.
Right. And then, how does this matter to that?
You have to make it matter.
Okay.
Well, you do have to show your work. I mean, everyone has to show their work, even if they're going under the volunteer work or something. You say, well, I went to Mexico for the last 47 years and helped them build structures, but here's my work basically. Because it's still, we're architects.
So you have an exhibit, we'll get to this.
Yeah.
But this was my exhibit number 5, which is 2 buildings I worked on, and a lot of words and a bunch of times. So these were the things that I said backed up my thing. Okay, so that's what we're, and the other people that I know went in as educators, they had done a couple of projects, and they wanted those included too. Yeah. Because I'm an architect doing that stuff too. Not just this.
So in design, you have to have, in all of them, you can only show projects that you were the person that was largely responsible for it, right? That's important. Do they still make you? I think they still make you have someone sign on.
You have to have somebody sign that says, I know that I can certify that Roger did this.
Right.
And then my partner Jeff issues.
So even if you are I like this, the jury doesn't judge the design. Yeah. So they don't look at it and go,
of course they do.
I know. But they do want recognition through awards and articles, and that's one of the things that made Rogers so difficult. Practice.
I wanted to go in under design.
Yeah.
Stransky was just like, no, you have to be opposed to.
You do. Practice management. How have you elevated your firm? How are you sharing the profession? And if you have a specialty practice,
that was me, specialty practice with the elders.
Yeah. So there you go. Led the institute or related organization. This is important for you, Bruce. The jury is looking for the silhouette factor. Yeah. And what did you do there? Seat time's not important. What did you do? Advancement of living standards. So my clients, what they did that was quite remarkable was their biggest accomplishment was they crafted a way to evaluate the energy efficiency of every building in their district. And I mean, this is a district with 60 elementaries, 15 junior highs, 10 high schools, and miscellaneous buildings. But they, in the time from when they started this program to when they went for fellowship, they had added like, I don't know, like 14 million square feet. Their energy bills had not gone up. They had in fact gone down because they were going through their buildings doing things like changing out all the lights to LED or even TAs before that, and changing out the boilers to more efficiently. So, and then the new buildings were to a very high level. They have a LEED Gold certified elementary school. They have 5 net zero energy positive elementary schools, et cetera, et cetera. So that was their thing, that they affected things. They also, I think, contributed to the general like energy efficiency and good design of schools in this state as well as our region and national.
With David Hart, I don't know if you know him, he went in under practice of thinking that he had invented a new way to manage big projects.
Yes.
And he didn't make it and had to, I think over his own objections, had to switch to, we did this fantastic project.
Yeah.
And it was about that, the state capital restoration.
Yeah.
Because he had masterminded the project management system that worked great, and I was part of that. But he thought that was the reason. But in the end, it was he switched to that, no, did this awesome project.
Yes.
And that's what did it.
And then alternative career and service to society, again, you have to be pure of heart here, so can't be giving something out of it. And then finally, this is the one for show how you've impacted the students you've taught, right? That's the main thing.
I think Brenda Shearer, when she did hers, she showed, things that she had worked on, key projects that she worked on, but also a bunch of student work.
Yes.
That she was able to kind of lump all together.
Two of my best friends are architecture professors in Kansas, and that's exactly what they do.
Their student work and the impact that those students are doing.
Right.
So, Jeanne, one of the things that I've done is, as I've gone, because I've been thinking about this for
years.
A long time now, is I've asked people like Roger and others who I know who have elevated, that you share your submission with me. So I've got a file of probably 20. Yeah, you did. Yeah, I've got probably 20 or more different things, and I have to admit it's a little intimidating.
Also, though, they're on they're not at this moment on the interweb, but they typically pick the best, say, several in each category from each year's submissions, and you can go in and look. They're not on the web right now, but they will. They do this
I'm downloading several.
Yeah,
it was helpful for me to look at a couple of.
It is, yeah.
And this, I was following exactly the instructions. So you can't.
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised though that people turn in. So, in full disclosure, my partner was my life partner was the jury chair, not this round, but the year before. And they served 3 years on the jury, right? And he said, it's incredible that people don't follow. Like they use too small of a font. And it clearly says what font is the minimum. Or they do 3 pages more. And you're only allowed to do 40. These things actually matter.
They make any reason to disqualify.
Well, I don't know about that.
But following the instructions.
I'll tell you my story later.
Okay. Submission composition. So this is what we were doing.
Okay, so you get a letter, and my sponsor was Mike Stransky. He wrote this letter 3 times. I edited, commented, rewrote it, and each submission he revised it a little bit. And then you have the 1 page, which is the summary. Here's my 35-word thing, singer, and then all of this is blah 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 about my story. And I had to spend some words describing my client because I was all about the client. So there's words in here about explaining what this LDS church is. And why they what is it that go on, why do they care? That was,
important to be
that was
explained.
my thing.
I think the other piece of advice that you should really take note of is, and I was told this before I started mine, anything you put in there that is an achievement, you can't be modest or humble. You have to say, because you are modest, you have to say, without me, this would not have happened.
Bill Miller.
Yeah.
He
was my sponsor.
Roger, you're a really nice guy. I think you could be an asshole. Clean all of this stuff up, because it wouldn't have happened.
You have to say it wouldn't have happened without.
And you have to switch that, because I deliberately tried to not be that.
Yeah, we like to say it's a team, right?
Yeah.
It's a team effort.
It's like, yeah, we do this, and I did my thing, and you do your thing. But no, I'm the one. I do this.
Yeah.
And you have to just sort of change that mindset.
So here's the composition, and I'll just say a word about your sponsor. If you get a bad sponsor, you'll be sorry. You need someone who will help. And what they do is they help you brainstorm. Besides redlining, they help you think about who should we get to write our reference letters. And then they typically are the ones who reach out. And then they also get notifications that the letters aren't going in time. Bird dog.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I was a sponsor for Hunt Bubble. And he and I, worked over the letter and everything. And then who should we get to write the letters? And we talked to Mike Stransky a little bit. It was always helpful. And then I sent out a notice to them. Alan asked them, will you write me this letter? Yes. Okay, Roger will get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Then I chased him and said, you have to say this.
Yeah.
Of his. You
want a good spread.
You got to cover these two. You're going to cover these two.
Right.
You're going to cover these two. You're going to cover these two. It was really strategic so that everything reinforces the story there.
It's also important to have diversity in your reference letter writers. We'll talk about the myths about them, but so I worked with Moshe Safdie on the library, and I thought, we ended up to be pretty good friends. Maybe I should ask him that. But I decided not to, because we had only worked on that one project. And I felt like it would be, you don't need to chase a big name in other ways. And they don't have to be fellows. They can be AIA members. I had my one that was a superintendent of my school district that I've done the best work with. And so it's also important, though, that it really is truly important that they aren't all a lot of white guys from Utah that write their letters. It's nice if they're from other regions, and if there are women, what have you.
Women and men, architects and non-architects.
Yeah.
Scattered all over the country.
Yeah.
That's to show your reach. I've influenced this guy who's an architect in Portland. I influenced this.
The other thing is, when I was on the Honors and Awards committee here, it was when you were doing yours, wasn't it? We would gather like every 3 weeks, and people who were candidates would bring their stuff, and we would go through it and critique it. And it was helpful because, like, for me, I happen to have 10 exhibits, and I had them done sequentially, right? And we laid them out, and everybody goes, no, like, the wowie one first, and then end with the other wowie one, and everything else you mix in, right? So those kinds of.
We printed it off and we'll
lay it
out on the table and move this. Here you say this, but this exhibit doesn't say that.
Exactly.
You gotta make sure that this and that, and it was really helpful.
How soon in the process do you start?
As soon as you have something to show. I think the summary is where we all started. People will read your summary if they're helping, right? And there's words that they obviously, and it's worth it. And then
we tried to do that last year.
Yeah.
And Mike came.
Yeah.
For it. And it ended up being more about this because of who was in attendance, people who didn't know anything about anything related to it.
Well, so, it becomes regular meetings as you develop your packet.
Yeah, okay.
So
we just
RK and I both used to be on it, but now we both can't because he can't do anything for like another 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So who should be on that then? Who?
I don't
I'm
know.
talking about Daniel and I as
Yeah.
on the work committee, who should we reach out and ask to?
I think Joe or Angie would know who to talk to about that. I don't know.
We have a short list of names.
Always very,
Yeah,
and he's been the sponsor for that dozen.
yeah, probably.
Broadcast coordinator, is that something we can? Yeah, they're auditors.
Our Utah fellows say they want to.
They do say that, so that would be perfect.
So I can launch that out and say.
I have my somewhere, so I'd love to start there.
Yeah,
And even if it's virtual, that would be, to do it virtually.
okay, so you start with that sponsor and they write the letter and what,
Which is probably the last thing that you should.
it's close to that and they basically, so Bill Miller was mine and he basically took my summary and kind of made it his own.
Yeah.
But with personal notes, right? Like I've known Jeannie since I came to be the dean of the school of architecture. But the sponsor, what you want them to do is send your summary to these reference people. And that's where, like Roger said,
Summary really is the first thing.
it's the very first thing.
If I'm your sponsor, then I've got to say, you're writing the letter for Bruce. This is what he's sent.
Right.
This is what he's put together. I want you to make sure you cover this point and this.
The other thing that you tell the reference, if you're the sponsor, I learned this from one of my letter writers. So they're not supposed to share their letter with you. But one of my old friends from the Committee on Architecture for Education, she broke the rules. She sent me her letter. She didn't say you can do it. She just said, I wanted you to submit it. Well, it was like completely over the top, glowingly supportive of all the things I've done. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, this is important. You have to tell these people, write it like they're the best person you've ever met. Like, if you can't do that, tell me. We'll pick another reference. And I did once write a letter for someone that I did a pretty good job and she got fellowship and I kind of felt like I didn't think she deserved it. But I did go ahead and write her a letter, so I should have known that. So have you been asked to write letters?
No. So, but one of my letters, I asked my different church, and he said, "Will you write the letter for me and send it to me in public?"
Yeah.
So I wrote this for him.
Yeah, well, that's
After the fact, I ran into the jury chair.
Yeah.
Mary and Katie and
Yeah.
I talked to her. She said, "I don't know, so good."
the one you wrote yourself.
I said, "What's wrong with that?" He said, "Yeah, okay, Robert." And I said, "Well, I wrote that."
Did you?
Yeah, I did. But I do. I mean, people ask me to write letters. Tell me what you want.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But that's important. Anyway, I've had years where I've had like 4 letters. Marky goes, "Don't do that again." So limited to 3. It's so much more. Okay.
So then there's
Section 2.
Section 2, significant work, and at the time it was projects. So one by one thumbnail, and this was sort of scripted. It was spelled out. This is what you do.
Yeah.
A thumbnail and some words about projects. So I did a bunch of projects. Was that mostly, and then it's other things. So positions held.
You can make this. No, we did your sponsor. Oh, let's get back to that. I'm sorry. They have to be a fellow or an AI member. They don't have to. Your sponsor. Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of it. You want to pick someone who knows you well and your accomplishments. Okay. We should have scrolled this. Okay. Summary page. We kind of talked about that. And I can send this presentation with you. Okay, so we're on accomplishments.
So projects, and then it's positions held. And I was on this board for so long. one.
Any juries you've been on?
Juries you've done. And then
lectures, like I presented at AI National probably 12 times. And so among others.
presentations, lectures, seminars, juries.
Yeah.
And so I'm a local grad. I just have all this.
Yeah, me too.
So I know some people had a hard time teaching it out, but I just can't go out.
I did that because I had good advice. So I'm going to give you this good advice. Keep a personal resume that anytime you are on a jury or give a presentation or anything like that, add it to it, write that. And I did that. And I've also kept every magazine my projects in been published in. I still have them.
I'll add on to that too.
Yeah.
I found it helpful. So I submitted for the National Young Architect Award. I submitted for the AI Utah
Bronze
medal. Thank you. That process of preparing for those, submit for because it basically creates the foundation of this process.
In fact, so I submitted in 15. This is my working copy, and then I kept the list going of presentations.
I still have mine. I still
that I just took this document and kept it going and other things and stuff. So presentations, juries,
okay. And then
awards.
yep, honors, awards, and recognition.
Yeah, awards and recognition. So some of these are for these are projects, and then some are individual. But awards for projects, I did it by the Utah Heritage Foundation. Here's these 4 projects. American Concrete Institute. Here's 3 projects.
You can organize them any way you want.
I said by this project received these 3 awards.
I did it by year.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then publications. And so it was publications.
This is the hardest one.
Articles written about Roger and his work.
Or by you. I had a couple.
Well, and then there's the other articles written by.
Yeah.
That's the way I split it out, because I had written a couple of articles.
Yeah.
And then these are articles about everything but the newspaper. So,
yeah.
If it's in the newspaper, yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's in some magazine, even if it's the Utah Heritage Foundation magazine or something, that's an article about you or about it's just collecting all of that stuff.
So this just kind of is exactly what we're talking about. So we don't need to do that. Okay. Exhibits.
And then the exhibits. And so there's a list of exhibits. You have to have 7.
I think it says 5 now.
Okay. But I did all 10.
I did all 10, but mine were all projects.
And mine are all projects. So these were exhibits, things that I thought when the was going to go. And again, the same thing is like, we will put that one first, we'll put this one at the end. And then it was, here we go, this is the, and then, a bunch of blah, blah, blah. And then there's photos. And then here's the declaration that somebody signed and said,
yeah, they no longer require a signature.
I think they do.
No, not based off. I just pulled off last year's instruction.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they do that because they indicated it's because they can't redact. It's hard to redact for basically kind of this.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
The name of the person making the declaration is sufficient to verify any claims called into question. Please do not include images of signatures or digital signatures because they make the elevated forms harder to redact for archival purposes.
So they couldn't be.
So I don't have to sign it, but you still have to provide the name.
Still have to provide the name.
Okay.
So that way, if it comes into question, they can say, "Hey, Jeanne Jackson, did we really do this?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just
how often did those names cross over to your letter writers? Does that make sense?
I don't think any of them.
I think I had Jeff Fisher, my partner.
Okay.
Right, scientific.
See, with me, because mine weren't all projects, so I had my partners, Steve Crane and Wade McAllister, sign different ones of my projects. But then for I had one that was on my service and licensure, and I Actually, I think I had to ask Hoffman sign that one because I said, "Would you put in," like, I put little quotes in, like, Jeanne was like the most effective licensure chair, and it was an honor to
Would you
work.
say that out loud, Mike, so that it's actually a quote?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jeff Fisher signed off. Because he knew that I was the one
Irresponsible chair.
largely responsible for this. That was the thing we had to check, largely responsible for designing the units.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about references already.
But the exhibits
Oh, you're still on
that
exhibit.
I saw
Yeah.
were from other, I did all projects. But I saw others that were in the most of this, like, papers written.
Oh, well, for me, the AIA presentations, among other things, I had a, thank God, one of my friends had taken a picture of me presenting once. So I had a little picture of me presenting at convention, you know, and then I talked about each of those. So I made sure that even on, I think I have 3 pages that were not projects. I made sure that they had pictures of something.
Not just pictures.
Not just pictures. And categorized. Okay. References. I think it's really important that the references feel confident they know you well enough to write a glowing letter. So that's something we looked at. Okay. I thought we talked a little bit about the jury process. So
Did you know much about it?
I do. I know all too much about it. So this was the 2024 jury of fellows, and it's weirdly strange to say 24 because they were the jury that picked the 2024 fellows that we just had announced recently, right? So what will happen typically is that all of these people serve 3 years and they're staggered. So Lisa Lampkin was the chair this last cycle. Maybe it's easier to say that. She will now be off the jury. It's been, you'll only can be a chair in your 3rd year. There's another 1 or 2 people here that are in their 3rd year. And so then everybody else moves up, they pick a new jury chair, which we think will be Anne, because she's quite a designer. I know very well, but then they bring on 1 or 2 new, whatever they need, jury members. Now, I was intimating just a little bit about this to Roger, but the process may be a little different this year because they're reorganizing the honors and awards at AIA National. So you're going to have to, there is a chance that the timing cycle may be different. They haven't looked for a jury chair yet. There's been a call, or a jury member. There's been no call. But the process, as they've done it, was that each juror gets a 7th. First, they get the list of everything. They go through and they tick mark the ones they shouldn't do. Anyone in their region, anyone they know personally, and feel they could be criminal for them. And then they split those all up so that they each get about a 7. And I will tell you, as a person,
how many is 7?
it depends. It's a lot, 40 sometimes.
So imagine 40 pages.
Yeah.
Of this.
So our case spent literally he wanted to be jury chair, so he wanted to show how diligent he was. So he spent days, you guys, writing copious notes as he went through each one of these things. And this is one of my favorite memories. I was hanging out in the kitchen, the family room area. He was at the kitchen counter going through them, and he looks up and he has tears coming down his face. I said, what is it? He goes, this reference line. It literally made him cry about how wonderful this person is. And he read me a little snippet of it. I didn't tell you it was because they're not allowed to. But I mean, these jury members take this seriously. You know, they look for what the merit there is, you know. And so anyway, they can't review candidates from their firm or region, or if they serve together on a national voter committee. So then, after they've reviewed them and they all turn them in, they get together. And when he was on Zoom for 2 years, that's horrible. And that person presents Rogers.
So the juror that got my report,
Yeah,
my submission,
right.
they're the ones who presented it to the other jurors.
Right, because they can't read it. Nobody can read it for you. Hence the notes. So they would say, well, Roger Jackson from Utah, you know, he has a really unusual story. Here's why I think the ripple effect, and they talk about things, and then because I overheard him doing summary of this. So in summary, I would recommend Roger for elevation. And then there's discussion. They only spend about probably 10 minutes, unless there's one that's very kind of contentious, like that some people are really all about, some people are like that. I don't see that. And then they vote. In the meantime, the person who's, see, only 6 jurors vote. The person who's going to present the next one is getting ready because that's probably the one they can't vote. This is how they do it. So they only need 4 people to say, out of the 7 jurors, only 4 people need to say elevated. So that's kind of how it goes. And then they go back to the ties. It's kind of funny, and they spend more time on it if there's something they can agree on.
But you're at the mercy of the juror.
You are. That's why they're
walk up and say, "This one's not ready."
Yeah. And here's why. Here's why I think. Yeah. That's why sometimes people have to go more than once. And the other thing is, and I'll just share this with you because he didn't mind. I got mine on my first try, but Arcade had to go twice. So, and Roger went 3 times. So part of it is, Ken Naylor went 3 times. Part of it is the jurors. Part of it is, I've heard Arcade saying, this one would be great if it were in a different object. Like they don't even know what their own story is. So one of the things the jury had talked about 2 years ago was, can the jury say we're changing the object? And I think they're kind of okay, you know what they're looking for. Oh, 10-point font is the better. There you go. High quality images are important. One of our colleagues here who had done a lot of code work. He'd done some good things, but frankly, he didn't have a good story and it didn't look good. So one of my friends said, we're designers. It ought to probably look good too, right?
I helped, that was Brian.
Yes.
I helped him and reviewed his a couple of times, trying to find some way to make his work as a really good, so professional.
He really is. Yeah, it was hard to make interesting. His pictures were like, what pictures there were not.
The exhibits were all smoother stuff. And I just could not find a way to help me make it interesting.
Okay, so the myths, we're getting close to wrapping up. It's a myth that only fellows should write your letters. Although I will tell you, if they know you well, I was really lucky. I had the president of NCARB writing one. I had 2 former presidents of the Institute writing one. And I had our favorite. So I'm just going to put that out there. Anyway, oops. There are no quotas. There really are not. And they publish the results every year of how many people, what's the first, second, or third time. I think they do gender and yeah, they do statistics. Anyway, important dates. So again, this could change. It's usually in October. If you get it in at 5:01 Eastern Standard Time, you don't get it. So when I uploaded mine, I did it probably like 5 days before. And then I kept going back and tweaking it, but I had it in there, you know, because you can do that.
You can replace it.
You can,
Yeah, I think I was in like 2 days before.
yeah,
and
I was totally done.
when it booked, then I said, somehow should do that.
Exactly. And then in the past, the jury convenes in February sometime, and they email in March now. It used to be before as well. When RK got his, he likes to tell the story. He knew they sent you a letter, and he knew because it was addressed to RK student at FAIA. You didn't even have to open it. I thought that was funny. Oh, here's some statistics. So this is from 22, I think. There were 239 candidates, 101 were elevated, so there's a percentage elevated. And then it talks about
higher than the statistic. Wow.
Yeah, they did things.
Yeah, you had some statistics that said that people who go on them the first time, about 75%.
Well,
That's what you said.
That's interesting. And here it is by object. So normally you could go online to aia.org/fellows, but it's empty right now. You can go there and you can see the list of this year's fellows, and you can see the quarterly, one of the quarterly magazine. That's all that's there right now.
When I did it 10 years ago, there was controversy. So should it be landscape? Of course. I would tell you that it doesn't matter, but in my mind, if it's landscape, it's easier for the jurors to exactly like that. Exactly. So for the so I it was totally yeah. I went landscape. Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of the story. And again, as I said, I'd happy to send that to you guys if you want. Or I'll send it to Joe and he can distribute it. So I want to share a little bit about what it means to me to be a fellow. I love that. And even though it took me 3 tries, and after the second, I said, screw this, I asked an answer, and strength came up to this is not my nature, but it was really heartwarming to me, like, it was to confirm that I've been working my head off. And yeah, you're recognized for this. That was important. I thought it was important for my fellow be one of the president. You don't have that. I thought that was important for marketing, even if you say falsely put on the desk or as the genius, but it's important. But that was, I thought that was important. We have one Wednesday thing. And the association with the fellows has been enjoyable. But it's easy to think of people who could. Yeah. And we just Alan Roberts did. Yeah. Ollie Cooper said, nah. We did mention you have to be a member of the Institute for 10 consecutive years, right? One of our, she did her whole packet, put it in, submitted it, and she was only 9-year member. She had to do it again. But so, and I thought, geez, there's a lot of good people practicing today that really have made a difference in meals balancing. Yeah. Which made a difference. And in our role here. It's easy to think people who have, but Dennis asked her, he said, yeah, well, when I was president in 2015, I sent out, I started a thing, and they do it. We send a letter to every person who's been a member for 10 years and say, guess what? You're now eligible to submit for a fellowship. And here's what it is, and here's why you want to do it, right? It was important to me to do it just because I thought it was not for my firm. I thought it was just important for me personally, as kind of like it's the feeling that you've made a difference. It's the tangible evidence that you've made a difference, you know.
How many years are either of you both of you each of you practicing before you submitted the fellowship?
I graduated from uni 84, and then submitted, made it in 14, so that's 3rd. I have to do the math with my calculator.
I got out in 1990 and I got it in 2015. But you know, it was 23 years. I will tell you that because of the work that I've done, I got to know a lot of people nationally. And this is as bad a story as yours not writing a letter, but I'm going to share it. I researched who the jury, because I've been thinking about it for some years, and I'm thinking, well, after I moved back, and I am the first one in Utah to be elevated, and that was kind of important. So I thought, God, you know what? I think I have enough. I think I'm ready. I think I'm going to do it next year. And I looked at who the jury was, and I thought, okay, that guy was a former chair of the Committee on Architecture for Education, and I had met him. And then it was like, and that woman was the first woman president of the AIA, and she's the one who sent the letter, she welcoming me into the institute. And Arcade knows her, and I get to see her every year if she comes, right? And there was one other connection, and so like I ended up chatting with this remarkable woman, Susie Maxman, and she was questioning me because I was, you know, newly with Arcade. So she was kind of questioning me about, you know, what and I kind of told, you know, we were having a conversation. She goes, you know, you should seriously consider submitting for fellowship. And I'm like, yeah, I've been kind of thinking about it. And then we had a CAE gathering and we invited all the former chairs, and that was not my doing. But I made sure I was there, and I did aim to sit by him at dinner. So I got to chat with that one, right? I mean, you know, it doesn't hurt to do these things if you can. It all helps. So there you go. I shamelessly did that.
Mine first.
Actually, can I see your logo? Well, they give you this when you get it.
Give you the big part. First, the second year, the juror comment was, "This is just going on in church."
That was really so rude.
And so, and I pushed back on this man and said, he said that the program administrator had,
yeah, Kathleen. She did data. Yeah. Delana. She's retired.
That she was flinging him. Because I had reached out to her and said, can you give me some jury comments from North Korea? And she said, and she and I said, you know. But then she said to Strands, she had have him submit again, get his submittal to the right person. So,
again,
and then my review went to this Mary Taylor.
Yeah. She's a very smart woman.
So there's clearly some.
There's some stuff.
Politics and junk.
We did, so I told you about my class. So it was Gary Payne and David School District, who was director of facilities. And he didn't make it the first year. And we called up, in those days, you could get a DB from Capital.
Yeah.
So we did that. And she said, well, some of the jurors said, it seems very self-serving that this woman is sponsoring her client. And
oh,
yeah, exactly. And then there was one other little thing.
So were you the sponsor?
Yes. So I convinced him to go again. He didn't want to. He was in the middle of a horrible divorce. And I said, come on, let's just do it again. You get 2 more letters, right? And they said, we needed a little more ripple. So we found a good person to write. And who was in Minneapolis, and she is actually an associate AI, but the leader of so that helped in another Southwest region school. So he went next year, and it worked. So when I wanted to do it for Brian Turner, his partner, essentially, we had our case sponsor it, and I wrote it up so that he got the first try. So
I've tried to get my client, Bill Williams.
Yeah.
To do it, and we've come close to it, and then finally the end was like,
Interesting. Huh. You should do it.
I keep pushing on.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
I don't know.
Because it's easy to think of people, so
Yeah.
it's an exclusive group, but there's other people who could, right?
Well, and I'll just say this, Peggy McDonough, she tried and did not get elevated and she gave up. And our candidate encouraged her because I think she could be, and they deserve it, leading the front. There you go. Anyway, Travis, hopefully do you have any questions?
No, I've just been listening intently. This is fantastic, Jeannie. Thank you so much. And Roger, thank you.